Kansas, home of endless prairies and Clark Kent. Today we are in her largest city. We're in Wichita, Kansas, Stacey and I, and we've been driving for 2 days from Columbus, Georgia. Conventional wisdom would suggest flying this distance, but we like to drive. We like to see the country. We like to see it from the ground. And we're supposed to be doing a half marathon on Sunday morning, but neither of us have really trained like we should for it, so we'll see how that goes. But we don't really have a lot of time to shoot, so I'm just going to get what I can, and we'll see what I can patch together from that. Night falls, and the desk clerk gave us a tip on supper. So neither of us have ever been to Wichita, and we're going to check out this supposedly good barbecue place called Bite Me BBQ. And we're looking for East Douglas Avenue. It's supposed to be a 5-minute walk, so we'll see what we find. Being unfamiliar with this city and seeing empty streets on a Friday night, it was too sketchy to walk, so we went back and got the car. We figured better safe than sorry.
Nothing against Wichita, we just got scared.
The liveliness of the place was inviting, but Stacey, being vegetarian, had to brace herself for the smell of barbecue. We got a table quickly, the light was low and the place was bustling. We discussed the choice of fare and the drive versus walking. Okay, so Stacey's a vegetarian, and a barbecue place is like holy water on Dracula to her. She has found some vegetarian options here. I've just ordered a pulled pork sandwich because I'm a sucker for a good barbecue sandwich. So Stacey, what do you think?
Okay, so we walked in here and it was like, oh my god, the smell of barbecue made me nauseous. So then I was like, and then Brian's like, oh my god, can you eat your baby? Because he's really nice and I'm really a nightmare. But I really wanted to have authentic Midwestern barbecue since we're here. So I'm trying to tough it out, and you know, with the smell, it's like the longer you're around it, you get used to it. So I'm leveling out a little bit, and I think it will be fine.
And I've only had Midwestern barbecue once before when we went to Branson, and it was delicious. It was just amazing. And now we're in Wichita, and I've never been here before. I've only been to the Midwest twice, and this is the second time. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this barbecue is like, and we'll let you know.
Thank you. This is my salad.
Stacey's veggie option. We'd come a long way and we're both travel weary. It was nice to be here. We forgot to order the chips and salsa. The air was filled with a lively chatter. Sorry, the picture's a little dark. I tried to make it lighter, but it just fuzzes out. So. But my sandwich has arrived.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
All right, so it's a nice portion. I was glad to see it wasn't a standard sesame seed bun. The bread is important. It can make or break a sandwich for me. So the sandwiches come. Stacey gets my mashed potatoes. We've ordered the chips and salsa. So let's see how it tastes. I like shredded barbecue over chopped or chipped. And I like heavy sauce. You get a little wimpy sauce on there. A little spicy sauce. So let's see how it is. This is our first real meal in many hours. And the food looked good. Now for the test. Good smoky flavor. A good smoky flavor is important. Shows it was cooked over wood. A little more spicy. I like spice, but not too much. Then chips. Thank you so much. And chips and salsa have been added to it. I could eat chips and salsa till I die.
It's nice when you're in here.
Now, I'm gonna eat this sandwich. The salsa was delicious. sandwich was delicious. Stacey enjoyed her potatoes and her salad.
Everything was good.
Everything was good, and we're both stuffed. So not only is it good quality food, delicious, it's also very filling. I'm stuffed, she's full. The lively atmosphere was a contrast to the strangely empty streets outside. So this was great. After dinner, we were feeling much better. Sleep now. Next morning, we were going to get our race packets. We ran across this statue. I'm a fan of the Old West, and one thing is for certain. Western women were badass. The marker says it all. It is amazing what people have been able to achieve. Raise less corn and more hell. And this woman certainly did her share. So we're headed north towards something Stacey and I really wanted to see. Bison. There is a preserve where they roam wild. It also presented a chance to see some Kansas countryside. We needed gas, and Stacey found a place on maps which offered even more. We were not disappointed. Okay, so we're on our way to see buffalo from Wichita, and we're going to a wildlife preserve, but on the way we stopped for gas in Peabody, and we found this 1880s Main Street. Check this out. It probably looks very similar to itself from more than a century ago, at least architecturally. Peabody is named after F.H. Peabody of Boston. He was the former vice president of the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway. Peabody is also well known for its 4th of July celebration and its historic 1880s Main Street. The town was originally called Coneburg, after the town company president John Cone. The town site was located between the current 9th Street and Division Avenue. During the winter of 1870, some of the settlers returned east to get supplies and bring out their families. In 1871, while the other settlers were gone, dissatisfaction arose in the community and it began to break up. Claim jumping of the Coneburg town site started to occur, thus causing a legal mess. During legal disputes, Coneburg became North Peabody. The towns merged into the city of Peabody in 1879. The town of Peabody was named in 1871 after H.F. Peabody of Boston, and it's refreshing to see it still stands today for any visitors who happen to come through this area of Kansas. I have not been, but I highly suggest anyone coming to the 4th of July celebration, because it has to be amazing. Back on the road toward our goal. The landscape is scattered with 19th century farms and long stretches of prairie, occasionally broken by tree lines and trains. Long trains. But eventually. Okay, we have reached a Tallgrass Prairie Nature Preserve, and we're gonna see what this is like. Took me forever to get that right. The surrounding prairies are vast. There is more to this place than shown here, as we were focused on the bison. Visitor Center open. Stacey likes to sign the register wherever we go. It helps to keep the doors open. They have all the things you'd expect from a well-constructed visitor center, appropriate to the area. Educational dioramas of the plains showing what kinds of wildlife you might encounter. Stacey pointed out to me these pelts. Beaver. Bison, because you probably can't pet them. Cottontail rabbit is really soft. And white-tailed deer, who knew their fur was so thick? No wonder they can survive in the cold. We're gonna go see if we can find some bison. Onto the plains. Now this is something. They have a bus, but it's not running today because it had so much rain and the ground gets mushy. So we're hiking to the half-mile to the place where the buffalo are. Bison, buffalo. So we'll see what we can find.
Half-mile.
This land is bigger than you can imagine if you haven't been here, and twice as big if you have. More than any screen can show you. And here we find ourselves walking through a prairie in Kansas. This dirt road takes you up the hill to the pastures where the bison are. Recent rains have left puddles in the road, so I encourage boots. See any?
Buffalo?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch.
Awesome.
When you go inside the gate up there, there's like 6 to the right, and then if you keep going, there's like a herd of like 30.
Sweet, thank you. Looking at our back trail, the visitor center is hidden by the land and the roll of the prairies. Shouldn't be too long before we see something. We've now reached the top of the hill. You can't miss the route to the gate. This land is lonely and beautiful, largely unchanged from 100 years ago, at least right here. Stacey has reached the gate and getting some shots of the warning signs with distances we mistranslated. You are supposed to stay 100 yards away from the bison. Oh, Stacey's having a little difficulty. All right, hang on. Let's see what we can do here.
If you get me to those poles.
She hit a snag at the gate, but I grew up around cow pastures. We now enter the wide open of the tall grass prairie preserve. Ahead in the distance we see a dark patch, a small herd. Even these giant animals are dwarfed by this landscape, which seems to go on forever. As we get closer, they start to be a little more visible to the zoom. Buffalo tracks, a once common sight in these parts. The wind blew in an unending roar against the microphone, a wind unbroken by obstruction in this vast, empty land. Worth every one of the nearly 1,000 miles from Georgia just to stand here, among the grasslands of Kansas. There is no noise pollution, only the sound of the winds and the crickets. In this empty corner of a former American frontier, it's eerie, otherworldly. Did you ever think you'd be in the prairie looking at buffalo?
No, it's amazing. And I really recommend it if you can come out here. It was worth the drive.
You have to be careful around buffalo for obvious reasons. One thing you notice out here on the plains is just how quiet it is. These buffalo roam unhindered here. They are not pets or livestock. They are wild and free, roaming the less than 4% of the 170 million acres that once was, lost within a generation of human development. That 4% is vast, but to the overall Kansas environment, it isn't much. Still, what's protected is ruggedly beautiful, and home to the native wildflowers and an unobstructed view of the skies. One almost expects to see mounted Indians or cowboys come riding up, as there is nothing to betray the century. Stacey is excitedly taking it all in, enjoying what is all too short a visit to this windy paradise. I don't know that we stayed 100 yards from the herd. People came in little parties to bear witness to a little slice of the past. Bison mingled in little crowds and visited other little crowds. They watched us, but never got aggressive despite our terrible math regarding safe distances. It's important to me to point out not just the bison in the foreground, but just how far the landscape went off into the distance, still visible. Even after leaving, while editing, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around the size of it. A person is insignificant here. This prairie is black earth with low-growing plants, and so we heard, has never been turned. Here's where I step back so you can see and hear. Now we're making the hike back toward the car. We didn't get stampeded. We did see buffalo. And we heard the quiet of the plains. On the way out, we saw Strong City right down the road. Strong City is another frontier town with a history of its own, worth your research, with a current population and a charm not lost to the years. And then there's this place. I know nothing of it and was satisfied to remain that way, remembering it for its lonely beauty. Back in Wichita, the Arkansas River is high. We wanted to see a local monument. So Wichita has this cool statue called Keeper of the Plains, and we were going to go shoot it because it's clearly a centerpiece. But the river is apparently at flood stage, and their river walk is submerged. The little river by the river is supposed to be the sidewalk. But the geese are having a good time. It's really pretty in this state. We came for the half marathon, so the next morning it was a rainy day and chilly, but the route took us through the city streets, which is the best way to see a city, on foot. And then, okay, from a distance, there's the Keeper of the Plains. We actually saw it on our half marathon. And the sad realization we could have reached it next time.